Up next, we bring you the latest with regard to the trials against former members of the former Yoon Suk Yeol administration on charges of insurrection amid its imposition of martial law on December 3, 2024. The Seoul Central District Court earlier this morning announced its verdict against former Prime Minister Han Duck-soo, and I have our political correspondent Ahn Sung-jin standing by with details. Sung-jin, welcome. Should we start with the court's ruling, which I believe came this afternoon and not this morning, Sung-jin?
Right, Sunny. So let's first walk through what happened today. Now, the sentencing hearing began at 2 p.m. and the verdict was delivered at around 3 p.m. All while this was broadcast live, like the recent verdict in one related case involving former President Yoon Suk Yeol. The Seoul Central District Court sentenced former Prime Minister Han Duck-soo to 23 years in prison for aiding an insurrection.
The defendant is sentenced to 23 years in prison. The case concerning the use of a falsely prepared official document is dismissed.
This marks the judiciary's first ruling that states that the December 3rd martial law declaration constituted the crime of insurrection under the Criminal Act. 23 years is also 7 years more than what the special prosecution had requested. According to the ruling, Han's role as a prime minister vests him with democratic legitimacy and responsibility, yet he abandoned his constitutional duty to uphold the constitution and the rule of law. The bench also criticized him for choosing to participate as a member of the insurrection and noted that his actions could have pushed South Korea back into a dark era where fundamental rights and democracy were jeopardized, potentially trapping the country in a prolonged authoritarian regime and irreversible trauma and loss for the public. Following the verdict, the court conducted a separate hearing to determine whether Han should be taken into custody and ordered his immediate detention, citing concerns over the destruction of evidence.
Right. Sung-jin, also for the sake of our viewers who may not have been following this particular trial, do remind us about the accusations against former Prime Minister Han Duck-soo.
Right, so the ruling came 4 months after Han Duck-soo's trial began in September last year. The main charges against Han were assisting former President Yoon Suk Yeol in an insurrection and acting as a key participant. Prosecutors argued that Han neglected his duty as a prime minister to keep in check the president's arbitrary use of power. More specifically, the prosecution added that Han, as the second highest official in state affairs, was aware of such unconstitutional plans, yet aligned himself with the declaration by giving it the procedural appearance of having been reviewed by a quorum of the cabinet. Han is also accused of signing a revised martial law proclamation to remedy legal defects in the original declaration and subsequently ordering its disposal. This marks the first time in South Korea's constitutional history that a former prime minister has been taken into custody in a courtroom. The ruling is expected to have significant implications not only for the ongoing trial of former President Yoon on insurrection charges, but also for cases involving other former cabinet members. That's all I have on the latest verdict of former Prime Minister Han Duck-soo from today.